Now I'm recording as well.
Righto. Well, we've got our sheet of, we've got our web page at the GCC with the questions. What brings you to the GCC? What do you bring to the table? What do you need? And what would a dream collaboration look like to you? So it starts off with what brings you here. And, I guess that's where we begin.
Yeah. Did you want to start off with a little something, or would you just want you to go and just listen?
I can start off with the observer phenomena. It's the frustration experienced by not being able to explain a simple concept to people in a complex world. This is causing the frustration. And so I'm looking for people who might have experienced the same frustration and possibly have some clues. So that's where I'm at, really. It's the internet's already here, and the network is here. All people need to have secure virtual private networks is the ability to log in with their username and password. You can have two-stage security authentication. You can have all sorts of devices to improve security. And a virtual private network is one of the good ways to go. But having real people in an organic network means authenticating a real human being apart from a bot. And that's the tricky bit. When you're using Zoom sessions like this, you've got face-to-face eyeball authentication. So you eyeball, you know the person you're talking to is real, not a fake, because you've got the video and the audio. So you've got a voice print.
Yeah.
So this is great because it makes the network secure. It eliminates all those questions about, are we talking to a robot or a real human?
Yeah.
And people can't spam you there. They've got to be honest. If they're dishonest, it'll show up in their voice or body language. See, body language is a big part. When you can only see the person's head and shoulders, it's more difficult. So the conference settings where you can see more of the person and the body language, that's giving you a huge advantage over forums and network and Facebook comments, things like that, because the people say shit and they don't put the references in there. They just say shit off the top of their head without backing it up with any links to the evidence or the citation.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what it's part of the Facebook I don't like.
So if I'll just to ask you one question about this simple idea. What I got from it was that it's about networks of people in local geographical areas and building teams. Let's say you have two friends, they have two friends, they have two friends, and in this sense you have a scalable network of people. And since the internet is already here, this can then be scaled globally already with existing technology, and with video you can authenticate that it's real. That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Have you got a calculator that you can bring up on the screen or on the disk?
I'm not sure. I don't think I have one here, actually. No, sorry, but
I've got one in my tools. It's when I bring it up, I press in 2 times 1 equals, and it says 4. Sorry, 2 times 1 is 2. Then I press equals again, and it says 4. So it's multiplying. Every time I press the equals key, it multiplies the result that's on the screen. And it goes 1 times 2, then it goes 2, then it goes 4, then it goes 8, then it goes 16. And after 20 iterations, it's over 1 million. And a lot of people don't realise that or believe it until they try it themselves and see that it's true. 20. If you add 2 friends to a local group, what you've done there is is 1 step in 20 steps.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do the other 19. You only have to do the 1 step, add 2 friends. The other 19 steps are done by those 2 people as they go out and do the same, because you're training those. You've got to train the 2 people to do the same.
Yeah.
Do the same as 3 words. Do the same as 3 words, and that's all the training manual contains. Copy what I did.
Yeah.
Do the same. Then you get, after those 20 iterations, the local group you started with 2 people has got over 1 million people in it.
Exactly. So here's the question I was wondering about, and I think Tammy actually also asked about this once. So what? So I get the structure of it now. So what is it that you want these groups to do? What kind of groups is it that you see?
Yeah. Well, we know for a fact that 99% of the people in the community want fresh food without chemicals. You know, fresh food that's grown locally without preservatives and herbicides, stuff that's been transported for thousands of miles in trucks and sprayed with anti herbicides and fungicides, because this is causing an increase in the rate of cancer in society. It's causing an increase in the rate of heart disease and premature death, premature babies, deformed babies.
Yeah.
And it's affecting the insect population. It's degrading the insect population from rubbish dumps and land runoff and toxic chemical waste runoff from the factories that produce this shit.
Exactly.
Now, that's why I'm doing it. 99% of the people in the community agree with me, right? It's only the 1% the people that own the factory that disagree. So I can get 99% of the population to say, okay, Alex, we like your idea. How do we join? Where do we sign up? And what I say to them is, I say, you don't join or sign up, it's free. You don't join or sign up, you add 2 friends to your local group. You go to your local group, you don't sign up here. I haven't got a website where you can sign up. Understand, that's the important thing for people to know. It takes action in your own local community by people who can make a web page. If you know how to make a web page, you know how to start a group in your own community. That's what it's about. It's not about I don't want a big Amazon website. I want to see tens of thousands of tiny local websites. And they change the law, because the local member who's trying to get into power, he's the one who's going to bring in the legislation to approve the mining and approve the pipeline for the oil and coal and chemicals that the 1% want to spray on our veggies. And so he knows that this local group that's going to vote in the election are members of Lioscope or Pledge to the Planet or Power to the People. If he knows that, then he's not going to talk about those issues. He's going to talk about the permaculture, right? He's going to talk about the issues we're interested in. We've got the power to vote in or out. We've got the power to change the result of that election, because when an election is neck and neck, if there's one member from the left and one member from the right, in the neck and neck close election, it's only a few votes will make the decision. That's when our group has the power. You only need 100 people in your group, and most groups will have more than that, hopefully.
So basically, you're describing a kind of people's network then of
political people power, political positive progress, all the P's.
Okay, yeah, peaceful, positive progress for the it's a
People power promoting positive progress.
people power. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, it's the
Peaceful,
PCP, but it's you can have like loads of peace. So.
yeah, people promoting peaceful protest perpetually.
Yeah,
Progressive.
So yeah, I guess what I'm hearing then is it's really a kind of people's network, uh, basically collaborate between people in local areas, basically.
Yeah, well, it's organic. It's
organic, and
because,
then maybe an ongoing conversation as well about what they want, right? For example, food and.
You heard of Rama Dajarama from the global startup success.
Yeah, absolutely.
GSS. She cottoned on to the idea when I was explaining it on her website. She realised that the nodes in the network were real people.
Yes.
She said that's what makes it different.
Exactly. Very, very interesting you say that, because this actually relates to what I want to do as well. So maybe we can switch that now, because we're 15 minutes in, and then I'll just go through the questions.
Yep.
Because I think there's some interesting overlap there. So
can I just mention one point that where Sam Hahn would come in, because he's involved with the machine learning and deep learning machine language, and that is the fact that these real people nodes have an ability to earn credit for their time and attention. You know, the time and attention we're putting in, we earn credit for that, and we earn mana, and it's accumulated by the algorithms. The algorithms are counting our time and attention in the background automatically.
Yeah.
And all we have to do, we don't have to worry about making money. We just have to provide the best part of our human experience. That's what I like about it. Now, I'll shut up and let you.
That was great. Because if you have algorithms to, they can actually measure your presence in video conversations, etc. Well, that's great. So so maybe you can just ask these questions, and I'll try to respond to them. Does that sound good? The ones that you were reading there.
Yeah. What brings you? The first two is what brings you and what do you bring to the table?
Okay, so the first one is what brings me here to the GCC. Okay, and yes, well, I mean it's very based on similar idea about people's network. So the thing that I want to see is also a people's network. Maybe my focus is very much on the conversation itself and on the conversation process, and the way we explore ideas together, and the way we share our experiences and build on the experiences. So there's the people, the nodes in the network, and there's the whole planet, which is the common home, the context. And there's the interests in, let's say, local initiatives, the possibilities of doing local projects, like, for example, if you want to push legislation or influence politicians, that's also obviously there. There's the algorithms behind it, which can do a lot of things. in addition to that, there's also the knowledge repository, this idea. This is also building on Sam Hahn, a lot of what he shared, is this idea of the knowledge repository. In a sense, the knowledge repository is already here. It is the internet. However, the thing that I'm really interested in exploring is whether we can kind of create an internet within the internet, which is, let's say, a smart knowledge net. So I call it an intelligence network of the people. To build the intelligence of the people, the knowledge of the people, the understanding, by getting all the best from different people. So I think it builds very much on everything you said, obviously. Then the question is, what kind of conversations can we have, and what kind of media artifacts could we also create out of those conversations? Like, for example, recorded conversations. Like you mentioned, that recorded conversations have the advantage that you kind of have to show up as yourself, and it has many other advantages because it's a richer communication form in many ways. But how could that be organized? So one of the things that brings me to the GCC is to learn more about how to be a part of these conversations, but also possibly to develop new formats and ways of learning together and listening together, and then to have something that can build on itself over time. So yes, I think that's a decent way to describe it. So it builds very much on everything you said. Actually, it's a similar thing, but I have a very special interest in let's say the formats of the conversations and the, let's say, interviews or explorations, and what kind of questions to ask, and how we can, let's say, have a creative dialogue where we can also have some wild ideas and big ideas and things.
I thought about that. You know, it was one of the things that came up was spam and level and hierarchy. The hierarchy, because if you have local groups, you have regional groups, like one for your country, your town, where you live. The two people you add will come from that same area, because the triad or the power to the people effect won't work unless they're local. If they're living in 3 different countries, it's nullified their power. They separated their power. They're in different jurisdictions. They're not in the same political regime. So they must be local groups, and then they must be hierarchical, because there's different levels of conversation within the group, within the people in the group. Some of them are just newbies who don't even know really their way around the keyboard, whereas others are programmers with specialised skills that really can't have a conversation with those other groups. They're in
they have different skills,
different levels. So you've got a factory on the factory floor. You've got the process workers, the lowest level people working on the production line, and then you've got a design section where people are working on designs for new products. And then you've got a research section where people are studying the world and how it works to develop new concepts and come up with new ideas. So there's 3 different levels of interaction and human intelligence.
Yeah, so many levels.
Really they're meant to be kept apart in order for the factory to run smoothly.
Yes, and obviously you can't be in many places at the same time. So
Yeah,
And
they can meet up. They can meet up when the bell rings
yeah,
in the
exactly.
lunch in the lunchroom. They can all
Yes,
meet up in the lunchroom. And, but when you're working on a project, you really got to go to your own part of the factory. You can't go to the wrong part of the factory. You get
yes,
sacked. You get
exactly,
sacked.
exactly. So,
So
so
this girl, yeah,
I guess what I'm seeing then is that there's one layer which, let's say, is a kind of more of an open space where people come in and go out, a little bit similar to these open Zoom calls. But then you can also have local project teams of people who work more methodically around special interests that they go really deep into. Yeah, I definitely see that. And also
there's
this,
a, there's a danger of your group becoming like a wiki page. Uh, because categories, because of categorization. People who are cartoonists interested in cartoons and drawing and art and
yeah,
anthropology, that'd be attracted to one place, whereas people interested in cars and sports be attracted to a different group. They're totally
exactly.
different interest groups. So this has the power to divide. It doesn't unite a group; it divides a group into with categories.
Exactly, and that's what becomes possible at a later stage if we have this people network and it develops and the knowledge repository also matures. Then after a while, we will really be able to put
Yeah,
together teams around
yeah.
just the interests that they're most into.
I
So,
think that's what. Yeah, I think that's what people want. If people want, Sir Richard Branson from Virgin.
yeah,
He
yeah,
he he wrote a book when he took over the airline. He was in competition with some other airline, big airlines, and he wrote this book. And in it, he described in this book, a journalist said to him, "What's the secret of your success?" He said, "I find out what people want, and I give it to them."
exactly. Find out what people want. That's an interesting thing because that's also what I feel is an essential part of the process that I want to engage in is to
Now,
really explore what do people want? What do you
well,
really want?
there's the problem there. Most people want shit.
Yes,
Most they don't think it's shit. They think it's great stuff. But we know because of the limited resources on the planet, we know that these wants are the wants for gadgets and shit. It's not the
exactly.
kind
And
of
it's sort of like the advertisers, want
people
to
want
sell us
more.
stuff. And yeah,
Most people want more. MORE.
exactly. So then I guess what I would really like to know is to go deeper than that and ask people, what do you really want? Like, if you could have just the kind of world that you could dream up, like your fantasy dream world, what would that
Yeah,
look like? What would be the ingredients? And really to have a conversation around that and
yeah.
to get in what are the biggest dreams of people. That's also what I see as essential in this conversation.
So it starts with understanding what the people want and giving them a place to express that
Mm.
with the knowledge that the question they're being asked, like Tammy said, the question you're being asked to answer is one that we want you to think about before you answer it.
Yes, exactly. So maybe it begins with what you want and then it moves into what you really want after. Yeah, we have about 5 minutes. Um, but
Yeah.
I'll just try to briefly go through the other questions. Could you just read all of them? I'll just try to briefly answer.
You've had the first two, what brings you to the GCC, what do you bring to the table? And the other two is what do you need and what would a dream collaboration look like to you?
Great. I think we've already talked about number 4. What would a dream collaboration look? What do I bring to the table? I bring appreciation of people and of ideas, specifically about the potential of what people bring and the potential of their ideas, because I think that many of us, we all have gifts, we all have special talents. Maybe we don't really know them so well, or maybe we haven't developed them, but if we could go more into what is your special skills, what is your deepest dreams, then that could really open up this, um, seeing a larger space of possibility emerge, like a potential, and to
Yeah.
learn more about that, and that kind of an exploration is what I want to bring, an appreciative inquiry.
I've
uh,
seen I've
yeah,
seen some other groups have attempted to this collective evolution, and some other groups
yeah,
like that, and some of them have been attacked. They've been attacked, some of them by the big conglomerates that like internet advertising.
yes, exactly. So that opens a question of maybe we really would need a structure that's fundamentally robust, uh, in a very deep sense. That's a big question. We might go into it.
Well,
There
we've
was
got it.
one more. Yeah, what do you want to say? Sorry.
We've got it with the Zoom sessions. We've got
Yes,
this face-to-face ability to weed out the spammers and
yes,
people bringing clickbait. So
exactly.
that's the advantage we have with the Zoom session. So what I'd like to be able to establish is a special group, a special Zoom session for people who are invited because they have a higher purpose, a
Mm.
unselfish desire to see the world become a better place, and the limited resources, used in a more responsible manner.
So you mean to
Those
really go
those
into that purpose, to explore that purpose in depth
those
then?
yeah. Well, those people are people who understand they're doing this out of an unselfish desire to help, not a desire to profit. But in the process, they will become enriched because we are offering we are offering to pay people manna for their time and attention. They don't
Exactly.
get Bitcoin. We're not using Bitcoin. We're using some kind of credit system
Yeah,
that's
I get it now.
not based on cryptocurrency. It's based on
It's
time and attention.
exactly. It's information that's stored about the time and attention that you bring
Yeah,
into the system. So you
yeah.
have an accounting basically, and
Well,
that's
we can rate.
also,
Yeah,
yeah,
a person's contribution can be rated by the other members as well, which changes value. Makes some contributions are worth more than others, obviously.
yeah, exactly. And you also have the possibility of anyone in the system taking a contribution from someone else and
Yeah.
giving special attention to it, perhaps building further on it.
Medium are doing it with the hand clapping. You've seen the little hand clap icon on Medium.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, the
Yeah, well,
hand clamp.
the more hand claps an article gets, the more likely other people are to see it in their feed.
Exactly. So in a sense, we already have a bit of that mechanism on the internet. I think we should go back soon, but I just wanted to briefly say, yeah, I'll just want to briefly answer one of them, and that was what do I need? Because I don't think that was touched. I think what I need basically is just to meet people who have an open mind and who are curious and who really uh, are want to be interested in going into this exploration. And
Yeah,
also, I want to add patience. I actually feel that that is very important to have a long time frame on this, because this isn't something that will happen in just like that. This is a long process, which is a whole life's work basically, and even
Yeah,
more than
long
that.
process. Yeah, well, let's get it done.
Exactly.
The sooner we begin.
Yeah, I think we've begun, and we can move fast and at the same time with a longer time frame. Yeah, I think this was great. We covered a lot of ground here. Is there anything, last words you would say briefly, or I think we covered a lot?
Well, it's happening slowly. Several of the people on the GCC are recognising the value of the simple idea, to keep it simple.
Yes, yes.
Because people can devote their time to bringing their artistic ability and their insights. They don't have to worry about the technology. That's great.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, this is great. Well, I think we'll go back to the main room, but yeah, this was perfect. So thanks a lot, Alex. I think we covered a lot of ground.
Okay.
Oh.
Totally.
But you get all flavors. I'm fussy.
Colin Kilburn,
Hey,
hello.
How you doing, Glenn?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I've had Tammy all to myself for a while. I'm spoiled.
Yeah. I've been in a little breakout room with Alex. I think you'll be back briefly. So this was, yeah.
Oh, there he goes.
Here's Alex. Hello, Alex.
Colin.
I think we got through a lot of
Awesome.
stuff in half an hour. Both Alex and me. We had a minute deep dive with both of us, and we had a bit of overlap as well. So it was almost like all the three parts of Tammy's recipe squeezed into one half hour there. So
Was that really
Awesome.
half an hour? It seemed like about 10 minutes.
yeah, it sure did. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just sort of catching Colin up with the premise of today's experiment, inquiring into them and their experience right now. And I would invite you, just because you didn't have an opportunity to participate in the experiment, I'd love for you to participate in the inquiry if you were open to that. So I just open the floor for you to, but to start off with, Alex, how was it for you? And maybe you can just give a little recap of
We discussed the simplicity of my idea and how it would work with the internet, and then we discussed what brings you to the GCC and the questions you put on the webpage. What do you bring to the table? What do you need? Operational point. And we discussed some of the technical sides. The people who do the nuts and bolts work with the machine, the technologists like Sam and then deep machine learning algorithm writers, the coders, people like Colin and Sam. They know how to do the stuff that operates in the background, which allows the members of the group to focus on their creativity and insights, the human element. That's where face-to-face meetings removes the bullshit, spam and clickbait people and allows real people to communicate face-to-face, not only show the body language, but also the story, the message that's coming from the heart. That's the value. That's where the value comes from. And timing a person's time and attention, valuing a person's time and attention can be done by the algorithms, can be done in the background by the machine language, because some of the voting mechanisms are clever. Like Medium uses the hand clapping gesture, the hand clapping icon, and that increases other viewers' chances of seeing their story in their feed. Because it's getting lots of claps, it's getting lots of attention from the group. That's the organic evolution of intelligence, and it's going to work. Because the people are not providing good content are not getting the claps, and not getting the vote from the group. Whether you use clapping or not, like Medium does, is is another matter. There's other ways to do it. You can, yeah, I think there's other clever ways. We could dream up something specific for the GCC. Oh, well.
And how were there any challenges in having the conversation, either technically or how did it feel to ask the questions and be a host, or was it just a natural conversation? How was
the difficult thing was trying to herd cats. You know, herding cats is, in a group like the GCC, is because you've got the wrong people together in the wrong room discussing issues that they have varying levels of expertise, and some of them know nothing about it, and others know so much about it it's overwhelming to the rest. So simplicity means
not in the GCC, but rather in your conversation with Glenn right now.
Yeah, but not necessarily the GCC specifically, but any communication between individuals anywhere. It has the same problem, especially when there's more than 3 or 4 in the group. Well,
and Glenn,
sorry, the problem
go ahead, Alex.
Me and Glenn had an issue that came up with the amount of time each of us was devoting to the talking, and because we had so much, we both had so much to give, but only a little bit of time in which to give it. So we were squeezing it in there.
And so part of that was that you were both trying to squeeze it into the same session. Is that correct? So maybe it would have been good to have one person really just be listening, would you say?
Well, we had some guidance from each of us. We're giving each other guidance on where our discussion was heading, but it was basically focused on the 4 questions in the post you shared. Why are we here? What brings you to the GCC? What have you got to offer? What do you need? What we need is an internet, and we've already got that. Then we need simplicity, I think, and a lot of people disagree with that. Some people want to disrupt the flow by bringing in extra complexity where it's not necessary. It's unneeded and not necessary, and it only serves to confuse people who are not looking for the answer for the right reasons. They're not looking unselfishly. They have a profit motive or an agenda, another agenda, or they're disruptors, all sorts of different things. So understanding the simplicity of the true motive for a person who does desire to make the world a better place is unselfishness. We're not doing it for money, although there'll be rewards, because when people bring time and attention, the algorithm can generate greater rewards for the people who bring the greatest time and attention, the greatest gifts, the greatest content, the most valuable content, as detected by the algorithm and the group voting system. It can be complemented in other ways so that it's more accurate. We get more accurate results. So this is where people introducing their own content is one aspect, but their time, the amount of time they devote to the group is another aspect. So these things multiplied together result in a score, if you like. We're not scoring people, but they do result in a total, a sum, which gives them the check at the end of the month, if you like. And it might not be cash, it might not be Bitcoin, it might not be hollow coin, it might not even be coin at all. It might just be a smart contract accumulating a value.
And so thank you for diving into some of the dreams that you can see that are alive in this space and where you intersect with it. And Glenn, I would love to hear from you. In terms of the experiment itself, how was it for you to have it just the two of you, to have you creating this artifact, this piece of media together that is exploring those questions together. And I'd also love to hear what you think would have happened if you would have just focused on one person listening and the other person sharing. So I'd love those reflections if you can go.
Yes. Um, in the first quarter or so, the focus was more on Alex presenting and me listening. In the second half, me presenting a little more. And at the same time, it also sort of mixed into some natural conversation, so it wasn't completely compartmentalized either. And that felt like a pretty good natural flow. When I heard the first session, well, when I heard what Alex brought, I started by quickly summarizing what I heard before, and he expanded a little on the idea. And I asked one question, which you've asked a little before: what should these groups do? And then he expanded on that, and that just felt then like a good place to for me to continue. So basically, I basically continued from there, building on that, because uh, I guess I realized that my vision is basically the same one, um, but that my emphasis perhaps is a little bit more on the conversational side of it, which I went a little into with the knowledge repository and how we could develop intelligence together. While Alex had covered this with local nodes and also mana, he actually brought that towards the end, which I think was great because he mentioned this idea of the algorithms in the background measuring time and attention in calls, sort of storing it into a database of mana. So there was a lot of overlap there, yes. And it was kind of like a lot, a lot in half an hour. And, we both had a lot on our minds. And so it was a kind of a mixture between putting it into and a more sort of forward and back thing. What was the other question you asked, Tammy? I think maybe you have something else, or?
Well, just harvesting learnings. Like, what did you, in terms of the form and the format, of doing a one-on-one with someone and doing that kind of mini deep dive, did you find it useful? What did you learn? What are some things you might do differently? These are all, I'm really curious about that from both of you. And I'm also curious, Colin, what you think coming into it kind of fresh like this. What suggestions might you have in terms of framing or capturing or designing the session that makes it easy for two people to go away and be kind of thrown into the pot on the spot to do an experiment like this? So I just want to find the easy ways. What are the learnings? What could be better?
My learnings were, I thought it went pretty well. I mean, main learning was basically I understood a little better what Alex's idea was and where the overlaps were. So a lot of overlaps, and it's challenging to squeeze it in to that time frame. It's sort of easy to get into a big grant, so it's useful to just take a look at the clock and see where you're at, because you're forced to constrict it. Yeah, but I found it very useful. So I don't know if it would have been different with a third person there as a moderator. It's might have been easier, but I kind of tried to keep track of the time, so sort of I guess played that role a little bit. But yeah, it was useful. But obviously, a lot of stuff in just half an hour. So that's the charm of it too.
And I also wonder about triads and what triads would be, because I think that's when the generativity really starts to happen, is when we're able to have a third ear there. And that's just also recognizing your passion there, Alex.
You'd mentioned to Glenn that after 20 iterations, when one person in a community adds 2 friends, if they train those 2 friends with the training manual, which only has 3 words in it, you open the training manual and it says, copy what I did or duplicate my actions. It's the training manual. And it just says add 2 friends, 3 words, add 2 friends to the local group. Now, after 20 iterations, it goes 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. It's rapidly climbing exponentially. And after 20 iterations, the total is over 1 million. You can try it on a calculator. Just hit 2 times 1 equals. Every time you press equals, it goes 2, 4, 8, 16. So press equals 20 times, and you'll see that the total's over 1 million. Now, if you live in a small community that's only got 200,000 people, you're going to max your group out pretty quickly. But if you're in a community that's got 80 million people, you're going to have a large group, and it's politically powerful in the local area, because all those people in the local group have the influence from the number of people in the group. When there's a close election, the local member sees your group, he sees the number of people in your group, and he says, shit, here's a focus group we better listen to, because they can swing the election. If they don't want this pipeline and they swing the election, the other guy's going to win, because it's a close election. Only a few hundred votes will swing it. They count the postal votes to get a few more, trying to get over the line in a close, tight photo finish election. See, this is where the local group of people have power, enormous power, to change the future of the humanity. One local area at a time. When you apply that on and globally, you can see what I'm talking about. Globally, it can grow from every different area. Every person who decides to add 2 friends to a local GCC group or pledge to the Power to the People group is a catalyst for this thing that's growing organically. It's like a virus growing on an orange, you know. It just keeps building. You know, when a cell divides in a womb after fertilization, it's one cell, but after fertilization, it splits into 2. Organic growth. Then it splits again, and there's not 3, there's 4.
So
because it's multiplying. Yep.
Yeah, I really would like to also have I don't know if you guys were able to really get to why your work hasn't had the uptake that you've looked for here, Alex. But I would recommend, because the math makes sense, but for me the meat's not there. I don't get it. Add 2 people. I want to support you. I want to understand how to do that, but for me, there's not quite enough.
One person in your region, your political region, or your postcode region, one person needs to start a web page called the Power to the People, or the GCC local, with the, you know, the format. You use the URL format, naming conventions. You can put GCC at the beginning, or you can put .gcc at the end. But it's a web page with a URL. It's a web page with a place on the internet called a universal resource locator. That's all it is. We've already got the network there.
I totally get that. And what I'm saying is I wanted to follow up on the conversation we had before you guys went into the breakout rooms, because you stated you don't think that the GCC is where to bring your idea. And I've seen you try, and I'd like to understand with you why that's not working. Colin, did you have something there? You're still muted.
Local.
Yeah. No, I think the mini deep dives and the breakouts of the larger meetings have a certain potential for more detail into what somebody's ideas or what they're trying to express. So I see Alex and Glenn had a deep dive today, and what I got from that was Glenn said he was more into the communication side of trying to make a difference with words and media, communication media, where Alex has a model that he can express, and it's the MLM model. And it looks good on paper in math or in a calculator, but I think religion has proven that nobody's going to want to do what the next guy tells them to do, except for the fact that there's only 3 words in the manual. So this is very interesting. Something that I came across a few years ago called the game. And the game, the only rule was if you think of the game, you lose. So then you have to start again. So I think the game was just how long could you go without thinking about the game? That was the only rule. And as soon as somebody said something and made the other person think of the game, they would say, oh, and then but they wouldn't want to say what it was, because then the other person might lose the game, and they might be playing the game with many, many people. So it's almost kind of the anti of what Alex is talking about. The fact that there's no rule other than do what I do is very similar to that game, just one simple premise. Whereas religion is more of, this is a teaching of possibly morality and a better way to live your life in humanity, and therefore make a better world for beings. And that schism's all over the place. You even get people with the same religion, they can't seem to, like, why don't the religions all start to band together as opposed to split apart? So that's the argument against 2 turning to 4, turning to 5, turning to 3, turning to 1, start over again. You don't get to hit the ×2 every time, because that only works in the model. In reality, you have to test that model. Now I got an idea that I've been forming, being with the group, and it's kind of interesting that we are in this confined space of thought. And one of the things more towards what Tammy's getting to, as far as format, would be, I find that we have a need for connectiveness, which we need to do in the group. So for me to write a blog or to meet with just one person wouldn't be the same effect as coming to the meeting with everybody. But at the same time, you're connecting with everybody, but there's less that you can actually say because there's more people. So I think there's a conflict between actually expressing what you want to say in the best way, an efficient way to get your message out, as opposed to coming together as a tribe to try to build a community that we can go forward together in and meet each other. And that's what, that's these deep dives, I think, are part of that space where we can meet each other and break off into these mini dives. But so say it simply, I think people are trying to squeeze too much into these Zoom meetings, like everything and anything, even though we have 4 different ones. People come, and even in 30 minutes, you and Alex said you couldn't say everything you wanted to say. Well, the reality is, why aren't you guys having Zoom meetings all the time between the two of you to get this resolved? Or is it just an exercise within the group because we happen to be part of this group? So you're not talking to Alex because you're actually interested in working with Alex, but since you're a support for other people in the group, you're willing to support anybody in the group and listen to them. So if you weren't actually here, then you and Alex wouldn't have that conversation. So why are we here is the good question. Are you here to talk to Alex, or are you here to be a support to someone like Alex? And so that's one thing. So that's the trying to fit too much, or what are you here for in the Zoom call? Is it connection? Is it to get your message heard? For me, it was to learn how to listen and be part of a group in an ongoing way. I think it's working out well for me. I'm having lots of reflections and thinking. It's clarifying. And I must say that Alex's message now, I've heard it twice now in a short, within 2 to 5 minutes, and he said it. He basically said it all, and I got it all. And I've seen him try to express it in other earlier times, and he would get questions, and then he'd explain the questions and get frustrated and whatever. But now he knows what he has to say in order to get everything out. So he's kind of ready to share this message. So that takes me to the second area.
Excuse me a second, Colin. Tammy, did you notice your recording was paused?
It's not paused on my end.
Okay, it's more.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Glenn,
you're
still, sorry, just as a technical note, Glenn, you're still recording, and I am too. So just if you wanted to save space on your computer, you're welcome to
okay, I'll
stop
maybe
your
maybe stop it now then. Just